First, we're going to talk about this whole thing. All right. It starts with this. The Facebook Oversight Board director knocks lack of transparency in Trump ban. All right. Seems like there's internal turmoil here. The director of Facebook's independent oversight board on Wednesday knocked the platform over what he called a lack of transparency in its decision to suspend former President Trump. Facebook did not handle the case in a manner that was transparent or consistent or predictable for the user, Thomas Hughes said on MSNBC's Hallie Jackson Reports. His views were shared. What just happened? His views were shared by Helle Thorning-Schmidt, a former prime minister of Denmark and member of the oversight board, who highlighted the opaqueness of Facebook's policies in Trump's case. What is important is that if Facebook is a newsworthiness part of their decision, it has a newsworthiness part of their decision, they must make that transparent because it's not transparent, she said on a call with reporters. The Oversight Board ruled Wednesday that Facebook was right to suspend Trump for posts he made around the insurrection, the Capitol in January, but the decision to make the length of that ban indefinite was not supported by platform policy. The board, which is composed of 20 academics, journalists, and former politicians, kicked the decision back to Facebook over whether the former president should eventually be allowed back on the platform. In its decision, the board suggested that Facebook was not fully transparent during its review either, noting that the company declined to answer 7 of the 46 questions asked of the platform by the board. Here's a quote. Facebook stated that this information was not reasonably required for decision-making in accordance with the intent of the charter, was not technically feasible to provide, was covered by attorney/client privilege, and or could not and should not be provided because of legal, privacy, safety, or data protection concerns, the board explained in the decision. Facebook will now have to issue a decision on Trump within 6 months. Some observers see this as an opportunity for the platform to establish clearer standards for how content posted by political leaders should be handled. Sorry, I seem to not be able to handle my words today. A little more coffee might help me out. You know what? I found this little explanation from Will Chamberlain. He was talking to, I forget who it was, Slate Radio. And he sums it up perfectly. And I just want to play this little clip for you.
We have this, we can get into exactly what the board is, but, Facebook created its own court with its own judges, hand-selected judges, to apply its own law. And we're supposed to treat that as though it's like a legitimate court decision, as opposed to, just like an authority patting itself on the back and saying it did a good job. We only really tolerate that sort of thing with sovereigns, right? The federal government has to figure out a way to adjudicate when it itself has wronged someone. Because there's nobody who can control the federal government above it. But we don't tolerate that with companies. Like, that's nonsense. If you want judicial legitimacy, then submit yourself to our federal court system.
Thank you. Facebook's essentially saying, well, we created this panel that will tell us if it's legit or not, what we did. But it's basically me making a panel of my 2 best friends, my wife, my mom, my cousins, and my dad, all sitting on a panel to decide whether or not my show is good. Is my show good? Unanimous decision, it is. According to my panel, the Krigler panel, if you will. Krigler panel says the show must go on, and it is good, so I like it. No, it's Will Chamberlain, guys. Will Chamberlain, not Wilt. People are like, Wilt Chamberlain? No, chat. Will, come on. Anyway, so the Facebook ban to stay in place for 6 months. So he is going to be remained banned from Facebook. Now, they have 6 months to decide whether or not that's going to stay indefinite. And it's basically on Zuckerberg whether or not to keep that in place. So we'll see. But in the meantime, former President Trump launches new website to communicate with supporters on the eve of the oversight board ruling. This was basically within a day of them saying, you know what, you're going to remain banned. And by the way, Facebook, you actually have to decide. And by Facebook, it's Zuckerberg, because he's got the controlling interest in the company and basically has the end-all be-all of any decisions that that company makes. And it's interesting because within a day, within 24 hours of Trump making this website, Twitter suspended accounts that post the statement from those websites, which is, Donald J. Trump desk, Donald J. Trump desk, and desk of Donald J. Trump, all suspended because they don't want this person's, meaning the former president's, words getting out. And here it is. It's really easy to find. It's donaldjtrump.com/desk, and it's basically just a blog. And it's funny, you can actually just tweet it right from there and post it on Facebook as well. So he makes it really easy, and he's basically just knocking rhinos, ripping Liz Cheney apart, because there's that whole thing. And then, of course, his most recent is very spicy. I don't even think I could read it, because if I read those words, YouTube's definitely going to go, I'm sure they already have a disclaimer under my page. I've had an election disclaimer under my page when I was critiquing President Biden last week. People let me know. They're like, "Hey, what's up with you having a disclaimer on your YouTube, your live show? It says something about the election of 2020." And I'm like, I wasn't even talking about that. I was critiquing the actual sitting president. He's the president, okay? And I'm going to critique him, but somehow they think that I needed to. The audience needed to be informed that the 2020 election, isn't doing so hot, or wasn't legitimate, or whatever the heck it is. I don't even know. And so I would check it out. It's basically his blog, and for people saying like, why do we care what Facebook? What does Facebook matter in this? What is it? Who cares? Well, I mean, it's bigger than that. You got to take a step back and be like, he was a sitting president. I was reading his tweets, and I was there. I was there listening to his speech on the 6th. I heard him say peacefully, "Let your voices be heard. We're going to march over there and peacefully, like a true American, and protest." He didn't say storm into the Capitol. He didn't say tell anybody to go in there and do anything. In fact, I'm totally against all the people that went inside, because they ruined any chance of all of the evidence to be brought forward. Although the people that were going to bring evidence said, well, because of this new violence, we're just going to go ahead and vote. And it kind of ruined the whole thing. So we'll see. I think that they're going to make it permanent, if I had to guess, because they don't want this guy having a voice. They don't want him known. That's why Twitter's going, nope. If your whole account's going to be just retweeting him, that's essentially just him being on the platform, which is kind of ridiculous. So does that mean people who say I were to retweet his more recent one, talking about fake news and a couple other things pertaining to the election, like, okay, that's just what his tweet was, his blog post was about. Say I were to tweet that out, would I get affected by it? I think so. I think I would get affected by it. I think my episode today is probably being affected because of what I'm talking about. It's got the word Trump. It's got Facebook and birthing people. Lots of triggering things for the algorithm, I'm sure. Right? And I know that I'm being watched because I've had videos being removed. I've been told that by human review, this has been considered misinformation, harmful content. My video making fun of Fauci was medical misinformation. I was literally just making fun of the people who worshipped him. I rewatched the video. All I did was make fun of these people and say how weird it was. It's getting so it's bigger than just Facebook. Look, even Steve Jobs. New emails show Steve Jobs referred to Facebook as FeceBook amid the App Store conflict. Now, of course, this is there's this whole battle with Apple versus Epic Games, which is actually its own thing. I should probably talk about that. Maybe I'll talk about it tomorrow, because that's kind of a big deal as far as app producers and people who want to release games or apps on both, the Microsoft Store, or is it the Microsoft Store? I don't know exactly. I have an Apple phone, so I use the App Store, but it is its own battle. But it's funny that even Steve Jobs was like, Facebook? You mean FeceBook? Yeah, it's a problem.